It's very important to me as a white man to make sure that the show reflects the diversity of our nation. And I'm always telling my team, and they know this, and my team is incredibly diverse, but that I don't want any all-white men panels ever.
Families marching 4 by 4, hurrah, hurrah. Trans members of this family all love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Come join the fun!
And yes, I think a lot of people have egg on their face. This was an idea that was first put forward by Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, Donald Trump. And look, some things may be true even if Donald Trump said them.
And you know, Trump was blaming the Chinese from the beginning because he was using them as scapegoats. If it happens to be true that it comes from Wuhan, well, that was just a lucky break on his part because he took a guess.
He was guessing. Trump gets no credit, no. Just because he was saying last year that it was the Chinese who were doing it, he gets no credit because he was guessing. And God forbid anybody give the guy an inch in any circumstance whatsoever.
He just guessed that because he was racist. Pure coincidence
exactly.
that it turned out to be true.
Exactly, and it's so funny because that's what the media is trying to do right now. They're trying to find a way to wrap their heads around the idea that not only was Trump right and not out of bounds for speculating, and Pompeo, the same thing goes for him, but they're trying to wrap their heads around how the media was, Fox News, really, and some talk radio and some podcasts were right as well, to suspect the Chinese government of screwing this thing up. Listen to this. Listen to you heard Joy Behar. Yeah, Trump said it, but he doesn't get the credit. Some people are saying that it's because Trump is such a liar that nobody took him seriously, and he's such a jerk, so it's still his fault.
Right, it's your fault we didn't take it seriously because when you said to take it seriously, we just assumed you were racist, which obviously we would because you're a huge racist. So maybe if somebody more credible had said it, we would have believed them. But because you said it and we know you're racist, that means we definitely wouldn't have believed you. So still your fault.
Yes, we hated you so much that anything you said, anything you did whatsoever, if it's the way you ate a candy cane, we're going to run Chiron saying that you were signaling to white supremacists and that you were an absolute monster, and to dispel anything you did as pure symbols and demonstrations of hate at every turn. That's all it was.
Maybe we would have closed the border and been for masks sooner if Trump hadn't been for that, because that obviously we couldn't be for the thing he was for. That was, what was it? It was, when he closed the border, it
xenophobic?
was xenophobic, right?
Yes.
It was xenophobic to close the border. And so then, we would have been for that if we hadn't been too busy calling it xenophobic when he did it. So therefore.
Yes, even when we had information coming in from the vaunted WHO, which was smarter than Trump, even from Dr. Fauci at one point, even when we had information telling us that this was spreading from person to person, even when if it wasn't a known fact at that moment, it was certainly becoming known that for some reason everybody in Wuhan had to be welded in front into their houses, and kept in their house. We knew there was a virus spreading. The media knew the virus was spreading, but even though they knew that, because Trump blamed the Chinese on the virus, we still encouraged people to get in movie theaters, go into Chinatown, sit side by side, go into crowded events, because we knew we didn't care about the science. It was so important to be activisty against Trump because he's a mean jerk, bully jerk mean, that screw the science at that point. No.
Right.
The priority at that point was to push back against the mean jerk. And that was elected politicians, and that was their media right there telling them.
Yeah, and this was really, it's coming out now, not only were multiple Wuhan Institute of Virology workers sick in November, but, some sources are saying that there was actually a potential case as early as September of that year. And some of the things that I've read have indicated that when you look at satellite data, so you look at how many cars are parked at hospitals in Wuhan in late in the fall of 2019, you can see a shift in patterns around October of 2019, showing that more people were showing up in hospitals at that time. So they knew something was going on very, very, very much earlier than their publicly declared first case, which was in December of that year. And they were still saying as late as mid-January that they had no evidence of human-to-human transmission, which was obviously false, since they were, like you said, actively welding people into apartment buildings so they couldn't leave, and putting armed guards in the middle of roads so people couldn't travel out of the region. I mean, they knew what this was, and the WHO ran cover for them while they lied. And when Trump said to close the border at the end of January, just walking back through the timeline, it got called xenophobic by the Democrats, who then had an entire presidential debate where they didn't talk about this at all and called him a racist for even saying it. And, I mean, I remember thinking at the time of that presidential debate, they didn't get one question on the virus.
Right.
And I remember thinking, this is such an oversight. This is going to be the biggest issue for everybody very soon, if there is anything to this, because already at that time we had like cruise ships shut down and stuff, but they were just still like, just go out, get your flu shot. The flu is a bigger risk. Make sure you patronize Chinese restaurants. I go and look through like liberal people I know, their posts from around that time, and it's all like, this isn't a real risk. Don't believe the racist lies. Go patronize an Asian-owned business for Chinese New Year and Like, I mean, in fantasy land. And at this time, I mean, like, Silicon Valley groups had already canceled conferences and stuff because they knew it was going to be serious. But it's just weird how this stuff happens, how it's like fringe, and then all of a sudden it becomes mainstream. And this was like a right-wing fringe thing for a long time. People acted like the people saying it were totally out of their minds and
absolutely.
wacko. And I've said this before on this show, but I know we have newer listeners since then too. Tucker Carlson is the one who privately went to Mar-a-Lago and met secretly with Trump to convince him to take the virus seriously and close the borders.
And doesn't that just tell you, elected officials and the guardians of the truth and speech, the media, the reason they weren't concerned with this historically huge humanitarian threat was they were convinced beyond, any doubt that the biggest humanitarian threat was Donald Trump.
Right.
And they weren't willing to hear anything else. This was a state of emergency since 2016, since November of 2016, and the alarm kept sounding, and they still were reacting to this horrific thing that had happened and was sitting in the White House. And
right.
so
They were
anything
too busy.
else has to be pushed aside. No, unless it can be used to beat on him, it's not useful to them. They were not concerned.
Right, which is why I absolutely don't believe the line that we heard around election time when there was the big reveal that Trump said that he knew it was serious and he, quote, like, didn't tell us or something. He knew that it was really serious, but he didn't want to alarm people. Well, guess what? If he had taken it more seriously and gone out there and been more alarmist about it and told people this is a really serious threat, go out and stock up on toilet paper. If he had gone out there and said that 2 weeks earlier, what do you think those people would have done? They would still be anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, wouldn't believe the virus was real. If Trump had, from the beginning, been more alarmist about the virus, they would have been on the opposite side of the issue.
Which is how it was in England, I think.
Right. So it was purely, they only see it through the lens of their epic battle with Trump. And they see it only through that worldview, and they're too busy playing make-believe in their pretend world where Trump is the ultimate evil to take a step back and see what actual issues are happening in the actual world, which are a lot more nuanced than Trump bad, Trump good, whatever. But they don't want to have that battle because it's much easier to raise money on Orange Man bad and having a, balloon that looks like Trump in the diaper and whatever. Like and being these resistance people on Twitter who, dunk on Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever. There's more money in that for them than in, taking a serious foreign policy stance toward China, which China, by the way, it's not like it's some huge vindication of China if it was not their shoddy practices and questionable research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and instead it was just unsanitary conditions at the wet market where they're slaughtering animals in inhumane and gross conditions. That's not exactly like some big, like, oh, phew, nothing they could have done then. Good for China. They're a perfectly fine and normal country. All good. I mean, we know that they covered this up and screwed the world over with their, frankly evil approach to trying to, cover up the fact that this was even happening. But either way, whether it was the Wuhan Institute of Virology or it was a wet market, both of those are, black marks on China's record. They're both not good. The only way it's not is if it's like a totally random happenstance that this virus just happened to cross over in the Wuhan area.
And we had known this stuff about the Chinese obfuscating and screwing with the WHO last year. I had editorialized about it. Jim Garrity was on this from day one. This was all public information. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to look far. But you were, if you dared bring this stuff up and bring them in, then you were kicked off social media and called psychos and madmen, etc. Just part of the string of lies that the left used with COVID, saying that Trump told people to eat bleach and the hydrochloroquine, whatever, which was used, and still is used to treat patients, not to cure the disease, but to treat some of the symptoms. To the virus, and it was the priority was all it was pitch battle against Trump the whole time, and these people are sick. And even now, this Wednesday, when Biden said that he's asking for more, into a deep dive into the origins of this virus, supposedly based on something that we had missed, some intel that we had missed. It might be some of that the movements of people, etc. That there's something that they're being vague about.
Well, our intelligence community knows more about this than I hope that they're telling everyday people. Like, I hope they keep something secret.
Well, early on, we were, like you said, we were tracking movements of people in Wuhan and here and there and where they're going. Well, the Chinese, by the way, were continuing to pack flights out of Wuhan into San Fran and into LaGuardia, I think. So, or JFK, one of the two. But if you're China, I mean, what do you care? You're looking across the globe.
And in the meantime, you're sending Chinese nationals literally into every big box store in the United States, Home Depot, Lowe's, buying up every N95 respirator they could and shipping them back into China.
Right.
They they imported tens of millions of N95 respirators off American shelves into China during the month of January, while they were telling us there was no risk of human-to-human transmission.
Right, and so, Alice, much like when Ilhan Omar says something anti-Semitic, there has to be a big referendum on anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim violence, like a couple years ago and last week. Who was Fauci sent out to tell to stop taking masks?
Regular American people?
Exactly. Because the Chinese nationals are taking masks and shipping them off. We can't single those people out. That's no.
Everybody stop buying masks. You're hoarding them in your basement. We know you are.
You are. But the Chinese nationals are taking, no. We don't single them. That is not kosher. It makes the Chinese government...
As a matter of fact, masks are bad anyway. They don't work. Definitely don't hoard them.
Right. Right. My God. This insanity in... To deputize the healthcare people too. That's another thing that I'll look at this and I'll always say this is incredible. I was just at the store today, as you know. Great shopping trip, under $100.
Did you wear a mask?
I didn't. And
what was the percentage like?
Probably 35% of people there still had masks, or maybe 25. Okay. Which still to me is like, really? So the damage is still done, huh? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's scary to me. And some of the people I'm just surprised at some of the people who had the masks on in there, and I don't get it. Yesterday I told you I went into a small store, where the woman had a mask, and she acted like I was holding the place up. I said, "Is this okay? Do you want me to go get a mask?" She said, "You can do whatever you want to do." Okay, I'll be in and out. Okay, I should have just taken the money. So yes. Now listen. So this is now because Trump is not around anymore. So this is tough now because it's the Democrats in the left media now dealing with, now that the smoke is cleared, the facts And acting, I watched Meet the Press with Chuck Todd today. What did we miss last year? What did we miss? We've since come to learn, and like his first guest talked to him and said, "Yeah, Chuck, we kind of didn't just come to learn." But so it is funny to see them reckon with this.
Some people are just coming to
Some
learn.
of them see them reckon with this. What people have to do to rationalize to
avoid acknowledging
right.
any wrongdoing on their own part.
Yes, it cannot be that I was such a petulant infant last year that I didn't do my job for a full year just to lash out at the mean guy. It has to be something else. So this is Chris Hayes of MSNBC. This is my favorite take of all. He really threads a couple needles in here. This is more about the left media here.
A lot of people on the right love that phrase, escape from the lab, because it sounds like something from a Marvel movie or a comic book. And this notion...
Maybe we just are curious if it happened.
We didn't know. No, we're stupid. So the people on the right who were saying escape from a lab, they couldn't have been right about that. It must be because they're idiots and they watch Marvel movies. It couldn't be that we got it wrong completely. We said it didn't escape from the lab, so we were wrong. They were saying it did escape from a lab, but they're wrong too, because they didn't really mean it. It was because they watch Marvel movies.
They thought that for bad reasons. Just like Trump thought bad things about China because he's bad and racist. Even if China really did something wrong, it definitely wasn't because of that. Couldn't be that it escaped from a lab. It's just they're dumb and like Marvel movies.
Yes.
A lot of people on the right love that phrase, escape from the lab, because it sounds like something from a Marvel movie or a comic book. And this notion, called the lab leak hypothesis by some, is not, I gotta say, it's not completely insane. But it's all kind of indicative of this strange narrative-first approach of so much of the conservative media's coverage of the virus.
So it's not... Okay, fine. First of all, they're idiots because they don't know why they said those words. It's because they watch Marvel movies, so they're stupid. Mm-hmm. That said, I'm here to tell you that it's not crazy that it leaked from a lab. But also, you're hearing that from over there because they love this, how do you call it?
The lab leak hypothesis?
They
escape from a lab?
No, the very last thing you said.
A lot of people on the right love that phrase, escape from the lab, because it sounds like something from a Marvel movie or a comic book. And this notion, called the lab leak hypothesis by some, is not, I gotta say, it's not completely insane. But it's all kind of indicative of this strange narrative-first approach of so much of the conservative media's coverage of the virus.
It's their narrative-first approach. That's right. They established this narrative last year because they love to approach first with narratives before facts.
Right.
Even though they approached with this narrative last year that it came from a lab, it's not that they were right the whole time. They had a narrative first approach. That's what they believed. That's what it was.
It's interesting because I assume
they approached the Soleimani killing with the idea that he was a terrorist who was killing American troops in proxy war all over the Middle East. That was their narrative first approach. So it turns out, yes, they were technically right about that, technically. But it just so happens to coincide with they were doing their narrative first approach.
They liked thinking about it that way, and then it turned out to actually be that way, but that is purely a coincidence and not a function of
they don't get
them
credit.
ever being right on the merits of the thing. It's just funny because, I assume this is going to happen later with other things. It reminds me of the QAnon stuff, not because I think necessarily every aspect of QAnon is true, but because the way that they poll the QAnon questions, to see who believes it. They just did another big poll, and they're like, oh, X% of Republicans believe in QAnon or whatever. And it's but they poll these questions that are things that they say are about QAnon, but that are also things that you might believe because they might be true. Like Hollywood and the government are full of powerful pedophiles who use their power to traffic children. And you're like, well, yeah, that is kind of true. There are a lot of those. So whether or not QAnon specifically is true, I might say that I believe that if a pollster asked me that, because there's tons of pedophiles in Hollywood and tons in the government. Look at the Clintons hanging around with Epstein and everything else. Yeah. So, but then they're gonna, after the fact, once they out some ring of sex traffickers involved with Epstein or whatever. After Ghislaine Maxwell, rats out people or whatever happens that turns out to vindicate some aspect of the QAnon thing, they're going to go, well, see, but they weren't actually right because they just believed that because they had a narrative. It wasn't the, they're actually, even though there actually is a bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood and government who are, all secretly connected, powerful friends. It's not just, they're just wrong about, they just had a narrative and that they weren't right.
No, yeah. And you can go right to Trump's, when he announced for president. When he said Mexicans, they're not bringing their best, they're rapists, Now, you could stop right there, like the media did, and simply slam him and say, listen, he said the words in order that say Mexicans are rapists. That's all we need. He said the words were close enough in order to put those fragments together for us to say he's calling all Mexicans are rapists. So they really went, all Mexicans are rapists. Not what Trump said. Now, he didn't speak well. His sentence was garbled. But Trump was saying that there's human trafficking coming across the border. These coyotes are taking advantage of women as well. So there are actual assaults coming along across the border, and also there's human trafficking. They're bringing prostitutes across the border, which is something that Trump got the whole thing from Ann Coulter's book, which got the whole thing from, the reporting at the border. They never bothered to look into so is there are there rapes across the border? And you'd think they would care. You think that still the resonating spirit of Me Too would be something they'd care about. You can say, but no. All that mattered was Trump is terrible, and who cares about this narrative? The narrative first theory that the right always likes, saying that there's human trafficking across the border. Since then, of course, and more recently in the last few months, there have been big stories about human trafficking across the border.
Right.
But Trump doesn't get credit for that. The right doesn't get credit for that because that was narrative first reporting or something they read in Marvel Comics.
Right, yeah. It's not that, they never bother to look and see when people say, like, there was this lab studying viruses and how to make them more powerful right by where this outbreak occurred, and maybe it's possible there was some kind of breach in the lab security procedures that allowed this to get out of the lab. No, they never look at that. They never look and see what exactly they're saying when they say lab leak. I bet that's, bunch of idiots. They just got that out of a comic book, stupids. And then they go on with their day. They never bother to find out that maybe there was like a well thought out thing undergirding the narrative to begin with.
And the best thing is, Alice, is that they're the narrative first media.
Oh, yeah.
The narrative is Trump is evil. Everything else goes by the wayside. That's the narrative. Every story, everything he does, whether he's staring at the eclipse or there's a kid lawn mowing at the White House or Trump's in a truck, everything is he is evil. That is it.
And or dumb.
Yes. And Melania is I really don't care. She wore that about kids suffering, the shirt that said I really don't care. Everything about her is bad as well. So, and everything about the family is bad as well. And the one in the West Coast, the other Trump that nobody talks about, he's mean to her as well. And Ivanka is a feckless C-word, and that's fine. That's fine. We've decided the narrative has been set. Everybody in this guy's circle is an evil SOB. Trump has never done anything nice whatsoever, ever. He's never said anything. We don't even talk about. If you want to talk about Trump and the New England Patriots, you talk about, is it time to cancel Tom Brady for hanging with Donald Trump? Bill Belichick's an SOB for reading a Donald Trump or for letting Trump quote him at a thing. You don't talk about the fact that Trump has been extremely warm and generous with Robert Kraft since Kraft's wife died, and Kraft is effusive about how loyal a friend Trump has been, checking up on his well-being, etc. No.
Right.
The narrative, nothing. It's all about, they are the narrative first media, and the narrative first left, and people. It's so easy. People believe it. People. It's. If you're like 22 and idealistic and a romantic, I understand. You're a fool and you're like that. And I was like that too. When I hated Bill Clinton when I was 20 years old, I hated Bill. I hated Hillary. I didn't like Chelsea for no apparent reason. I liked Buddy the dog. That's the only thing I'd ever admit that I liked. But, everything that they did, everything Bill did was terrible. He's a bastard. I hated him. I told my mother, I remember at the time, I said, Mom, I bleeping hate Bill Clinton. I hate him. She said, don't say you hate somebody. That's not nice. But, you're a 20-year-old extremist, and, it's always white or black at that point, etc. But for an older person to viscerally hate Donald Trump, Eric Trump, SOB, you know, those guys shooting the animal, like grown people 40 to 75 viscerally hate everybody. It's incredible. As a matter of fact, and we'll get back to the nuts and bolts of this thing here, but just like I got this little cut from John Oliver. He's an idiot. That's fine, but just listen to this. This is just a few seconds about him talking about Ron DeSantis.
Now, meanwhile, the week saw the latest attempts to undermine the democratic process, with Texas and Florida continuing the trend of Republicans enacting new voting restrictions. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis, a man with a vibe that screams, "We'll flirt with your teenage friends," signed a bill live on Fox and Friends for some reason that targets ballot drop boxes and voting by mail.
You understand that? He's a creep. No, he's not just a governor whose policy positions I don't believe in. No, he's a monster too. He wants to rape the teenage friends of your daughter.
Is
That's
there
what he wants to do.
any
It's
possible evidence? Biden gives off a lot more vibes of wanting
Nobody
to
can
hook
have
up with children.
Policy position differences. Nobody can have different opinions unless you're exactly like them. Unless you hate Trump as much as they do. Unless you feel like when they see that somebody is anti-abortion. They son of a monster, evangelist, crazy, snake handling Christians want their hands all over our bodies and to stop us from being free women. They probably want to take care. They want all Planned Parenthood gone, which in Planned Parenthood does so much many healthcare offerings. They want to take away women's healthcare because it's just the brides. What's the maids thing? The thing where you have to dress like. What's the freaking thing where the women
Bridesmaids?
No, the women are made to get pregnant. The HBO show, Handmaid's Tale, whatever.
I couldn't
because
figure
that's
out what you were
the
saying.
narrative. The narrative is that's what Republicans really want. The ones who aren't secretly closeted gay, which is probably about half of them, is they really want to force women to just carry children. No more voting. No more education. No, I know they can tell. They can tell that about people. They're sick. Anybody, and they look at Republicans who aren't like them, who don't sit around and, think they're just incredibly brilliant for just getting stoned and being semi-employed and being bike messengers. They think, my God, look at that guy in a suit and tie and a guy who studies the Constitution. He's a fascist. That's what he is. This is Seth Rogen, the great Seth Rogen, and he is precisely who I was just describing right there.
Ted Cruz is a fascist. He denies the reality of the election. His words caused people to die, and I'm making jokes about it. Is that a feud? I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like a feud. To me, it seems like I'm pointing out the fact that...
Narrative first. He's just a fascist. Mm-hmm. He is. So I'm just a comedian, a Hollywood actor guy. I'm just doing stuff like a decent American, saying what I believe and saying my truth. Ted Cruz, though, he's just a fascist. Fascist. Think Mussolini. That's who Ted Cruz is.
He is a terrible man whose words have resulted in death, and I guess to me, it speaks to what I think is a bigger problem in America, which is like a false equivalency. And I think even I was going to use the term between the right and the left, which makes it seem like two appendages of the same creature, which right. I don't think it is. I think one is a creature, and the other is just trying to stop it from destroying the country. And
see, that's the narrative. Yeah. They're the creature. They're the monster. That's you listening. That's you, Alice. That's you, Pepper. It's me.
We're a creature.
We're the creatures. They're the ones just, trying to be reasonably trying to get us to stop killing everybody and hurting everything and destroying it. They believe that, Alice.
I know they do.
That.
I know they do.
They believe that. Then they go to college at 17 and they're told that, you know what? Not only are the bad creatures are out there, but the creatures rape everybody everywhere and they steal all the money and they do this and they're awful. Then they send the kids back to their parents for the weekends, and then the kids are looking at their parents like they're. It's freaking it's and the people who are ideologues, who are smart enough to know, love this. because it works. It works. Just throw a little fire in there. They're going to get you back in chains. They're going to put you all back in chains. Tell the black people that.
Most of them don't care. I mean, look how quickly these people who were big, McCain people like Steve Schmidt switched sides and, for all intents and purposes, became Democrats overnight when they felt that they had a better grift going with blue resistance people than with Tea Party people. They were willing to make money off all the Tea Party stuff, and then they turned around and now they're making money off blue wave resistance people. First of all, never give any of these groups any of your money. Any of them.
No. God.
None of these PACs. It is not worth it. Not the right-wing ones, not the left-wing ones. I'm serious when I say that all those Tea Party PACs and stuff, they sucked all the money and energy out of the Tea Party movement that existed in 2010. They took all that money, 90% went to consultant fees for jokers like Steve Schmidt and these types of people that run the Lincoln Project and everything else that absolutely do not care ideologically about any of these issues. And then, they went on their merry way without electing any candidates or doing anything. Anything that came out of the Tea Party movement was accomplished in spite of all those people and not because of them.
Well, I mean, the Freedom Caucus came out of there, I think, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying not because of these PACs and consultants and stuff.
No,
yes. Because some people happen to get elected on
right.
grassroots energy, like Scott Brown and people like that who went to Washington, because voters elected them, not because these PACs that did nothing in any elections.
Tea Party Inc. was a very different thing than the grassroots.
Right. And these groups are doing the same thing to these blue wave resistance people. It's the same. When you give your money to Black Lives Matter, you're not doing anything. You're just paying people to buy fancy houses and everything else.
To the point now where the left is in the very tough position of having to report on it.
Right, yeah. So now they're having Patrice Cullors, I think her name is. She's resigned from the group because she's enriched herself so much.
She's a real estate mogul now.
And
she's a real estate Marxist now.
Yeah, there's no end to the grift. It just keeps going and going. And these people take. They don't get any candidates elected. They don't push for any reform and change or anything that you want. Like,
as a matter of fact, they get candidates defeated.
Right. Yeah, they're useless. Say what you want about Stacey Abrams, because I disagree with her about a lot, but at least she was doing stuff out there. She's not a grifter per se, although that may change in the future. Who knows?
She was spreading the big lie, Alice, which is what I'm told what it is when you lie about elections.
Yeah, well, she's obviously a delusional person, but she's not in the same class of human scum that like Steve Schmidt and these other grifters are. These like consultant class garbage people who just, essentially take money from hardworking people to buy themselves $1 million homes and do nothing to get candidates moved in any direction.
Correct. So all right, so we'll go through a little bit of this audio here. This is Jonathan Karl from ABC, who he's like Jake Tapper. They're of mid-level intelligence. They're DC guys, like Columbia grad kind of people. Mm-hmm. They're elites, but both of them have done good work.
Yes.
During the Obama administration, both Tapper and Jonathan Karl were good. They were questioning Obama about issues rather than, rubbing his shoulders. And that was good. Now Jonathan Karl has had an epiphany today during one of the shows, ABC's, whatever their show is, had an epiphany. That, you know what, guys? Mm-hmm. Maybe we screwed up last year.
And yes, I think a lot of people have egg on their face. This was an idea that was first put forward by Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, Donald Trump, and look, some things may be true even if Donald Trump said them.
Wow. Even if Donald Trump said them?
So in other words, guys, there are exceptions to our agreed upon narrative.
Right, yeah. It's if Hitler says it's raining, will you still carry an umbrella?
Right.
It's, you have to at some point decide.
Even Trump says a couple of things that are true. Every once in a while, every 58,000 words or so.
Yeah, sometimes we can't just blanket call everything out of his mouth a lie.
And remember, Trump
before we learn anything else about it.
And Trump is a BSer, a bleep talker kind of guy. But that doesn't mean that he's any more of a liar than Joe Biden is. And as a matter of fact, Joe Biden's lies have been nuclear level lies.
Right, like the marching in the civil rights movement.
Yes, I mean through his career.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is a bull bleeper about how good his car is, how good his vodka is, how good his suit is, how good he looks, how fantastic the hotel is.
Trump lies and said his ties are the highest quality in the world, and they're really not.
The best you've ever seen. I mean, that's salesman flim-flam, he said. But unless you're an absolute mouth-breathing moron, the kind of person who gets hit by a car multiple times while walking down the street, unless you're that person, then you know it. You don't know that's Trump. That's what he's done. That's what he always does.
Right.
He's flim-flammy. That's what this stuff is. He's a jive talker, Yeah.
You have to just to get by in the world from day to day. You have to realize that some people, like people selling you cars or real estate agents or Donald Trump, say things to you that aren't strictly 100% true. And you have to be able to kind of like take what they say with a grain of salt, or you're going to be taken advantage of everywhere you go.
Right. And people usually know this until they don't know it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll just use men. Men are always selling something. Whether or not it's cars, whether or not it's themselves. When you're out at a bar and a guy talks to you, he's not saying the true thing. He's saying the effective thing, or trying to. Right. It's not a matter of, I'd like to have an honest discourse with you. No, were you kidding? No, you're trying to sell. You're pitching yourself. It's flim-flammery. And then Trump is absolutely a flim-flammery kind of guy, and he doesn't lie in the way that the media accepts in D.C. So Jake Tapper and Jonathan Karl, they're like, well, he lies so much. No. He just lies in the way that you find unacceptable and gross and gauche.
Well, does it.
Biden does it in an aw shucks, man. Come on, man, kind of way. And you accept that kind. Mm-hmm. So now you see Trump and people like Trump, and he's like, wow, all of those lies. No. And the Washington Post says, well, we've counted 183,000 lies so far, to their Trump exclusive lie meter. And so when this is Washington, D.C., it's full of lawyers and politicians. Are you kidding me? And you're not detecting any lies around here?
Yeah, but the thing is, too, and this is like where it goes off the rails, is they also just don't like that he's tacky. And his tie is the wrong length, and he doesn't dress right, and his hair is weird, and he's too orange.
And he's fat.
He's fat. He doesn't buy into.
And he's fat. Alice, not only is he fat, but he claims he's not. And he does not only does he claim he's not fat, but he claims that he's the most in shape president there has ever been.
Right.
And he's got a doctor who claims the same.
Right. So, I mean, but the bigger problem to them isn't the fact that he's a scam artist and a liar. The bigger problem to them is the fact that he's doing it while being tacky and, like you said, gauche and nouveau riche. Like, Biden is doesn't come from money, but does it in the way that they like, where they're like, I'm just scrappy Scranton Joe over here, and I come from nothing, and I revere the unions who built America, and that is acceptable to them. Saying I'm the richest, best, coolest, and having a gold-plated toilet and a tie that's the wrong length is unacceptable if you're an elite who actually looks for quality people. If you're a waspy good person who's a Presbyterian and goes to the right church and knows the right people, he's way too tacky for you. And that's the bigger problem with him that they have. And that's why when they can't believe that, regular Americans think that this billionaire is on their team, that's exactly why. It's because they're dissing his taste and style. They're dissing him for liking Big Macs and wanting an extra scoop of ice cream when, tons of people in America like Big Macs. I mean, so they don't hear you insulting Trump for the lie. They hear you looking down at Trump for things that they think are cool too,
Yes, and they also believe, and it's probably origins are out of the Kennedy Camelot thing. But they believe they have a romantic vision of Washington in statesmanship and how politics is done in a decent way. Among Democratic politics, really, is what they're talking about, because they're not interested in
that. Never applies
George W.
to
Bush
Republicans.
was just an idiot. Texas,
and Dick Cheney was evil.
Yeah, Cheney was evil. But no, but it's and that's why they have the West Wing view of politics, and they love the West Wing, and the music would play, and the president would lay down the law in a way that, you know what, we as Americans needed to hear. And the staff would get up and one by one clap, and they'd all clap, and it felt good, and there was a majesty in it, and it wasn't filthy Washington transaction. Something good was happening, and that's why when they rammed down the Obamacare thing, Nancy Pelosi took a Bible and walked across the Capitol campus, whatever it was, and they had this feel good, more of this of this, demonstrating something extraordinary and noble was happening. We should all get behind this universal health care. Obamacare, we'll call it, the American whatever Health Act. And that's so important. Then Trump takes his Bible and goes to the church that got burned, this SOB, this monster. He's doing a photo op. That son of a bee, freak, and they're apoplectic about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is so the way Tapper talks is so crazy, and we'll play some of it, that he can't detect anybody. I'm not going to listen to anybody who's spreading the big lie. I won't listen to anybody. Everybody in the building you're sitting in was spreading a big lie, and still does sometimes for years. I'm not going to use big lie, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're calling it a big lie.
Right. Was spreading the election was stolen. They were telling people they were all in this together, all in it together, which is why, and we'll get to the Capitol investigation in a moment. Mm-hmm. But let's finish Jonathan Karl again.
And yes, I think a lot of people have egg on their face. This was an idea that was first put forward by Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, Donald Trump. And look, some things may be true even if Donald Trump said them. And because Trump was saying so much else that was just out of control, and because he was, making a frankly racist appeal, talking about Kung Flu and the China virus.
I don't consider any of those terms racist.
Did Trump even say Kung Flu? Or
I don't know if he did, but every one of these news organizations was calling it a China virus.
It was the Wuhan virus at the beginning.
Right, exactly. So
his notion that
well, he's saying that we found him so incredibly offensive that maybe we didn't see it. Well, there are people we pay to decipher these things, even through a hailstorm of offensive content.
Right. To people to rise above the opinions and the narrative, as it were, and try to determine the underlying facts of the situation.
Put forward that this may have, or that he said flatly that this came from that lab, was widely dismissed. But actually, there's some real reason. We don't know, by the way. We still don't know. We absolutely don't know. But now serious people are saying it needs a serious inquiry.
Serious people. Oh. Us, in other words.
The President of the United States wasn't a serious enough person for us.
Now we're concerned. Now.
We got you banned from Facebook for wondering if it came from a lab. But now we're wondering if it might have come from a lab. Will we stop and go back and get you reinstated to Facebook? No, because actually that was just about disagreeing with us.
I don't believe the election was stolen, Alice.
Not in the traditional sense, anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, obviously, everybody did the extraordinary measure that they could to make sure that he didn't win.
Right.
But the only evidence I have in the pro-stolen conspiracy side is all these people. Right. And all the Democrats in Congress. Mm-hmm. And all of these other vile actors who are willing to do anything. That's all I have. All right. So Howard Kurtz, who I love, on Media Buzz really kind of beat the hell out of these folks for the first few seconds of his show.
It was a whack job theory, right? It was Looney Tunes. It was trashy Trump talk, surely not worthy of serious journalistic attention. The liberal site Vox ran this piece 14 months ago. The conspiracy theories about the origins of the coronavirus debunked. Debunked. Nothing to see here. Well, that story got an editor's note this week. Now, more than a year later, finally, belatedly, the press is taking seriously an argument about the origins of COVID-19. The headline on the Washington Post fact checker column, how the Wuhan lab leak theory suddenly became credible. Look, it's a difficult thing to investigate given Beijing's tight control over Chinese society, but most news organizations didn't even try. Nobody's buying Trump's Wuhan lab theory, The Guardian declared last year, and that's the reason. If President Trump said it, the media dismissed it. If conservatives embraced it, liberal pundits mocked it. This just speaks volumes about our media establishment. Now, nothing's been proven, but the circumstantial evidence is growing. Will there be any soul searching about what amounted to media malpractice? Don't hold your breath.
Exactly. So, the New York Times did a podcast with Jake Tapper, and the podcast called The Sway. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
With Kara Swisher.
No.
Apparently, she's a Times reporter. It's not bad, actually. It actually was idiotic at times, but anyway, it was revealing. She asked Tapper some questions you'd figure he'd want to be steered the hell away from, so I liked that anyway. Did we want to play the View audio, or if we had it? We get the point by now, right? Okay, we get the point. I'm not going to play the View audio. Okay, so Tom, relax. I have that what Trump has sometimes, Alice, that I'll go forward saying something and have little branches.
And then sometimes you just got off from where you were in the first place.
Right. So I'm going to stick to one, and managers have called me out on this as well and told me to calm down. Finish one thought at a time. Okay, so this is Jake Tapper, and so talking to Kara Swisher here. First about who he'll have on his show and who he won't.
This is something that I wrestle with every day, which is why you're hearing the struggle in my voice.
I like hearing the struggle. Go ahead.
Which is, I have not booked since the election anyone who's engaged in these lies. I haven't. It's not a policy, but it's a philosophy where I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal, like if you, and there are, it really.
First of all, lies is not a word that he should use. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, they can be inaccurate, could be misinformation, they could be wrong, and that's fine. A lie connotes a mischievous. What's
mischievous?
How about malicious?
Okay.
So I can't say the other one, apparently.
Okay.
Malicious intent.
Yes.
Okay. So some people are, technically, would be doing that. That's fine.
Sydney Bell is still out there saying this. I told you this today.
She also
was at an
might
event.
just be nuts.
She was at an event saying that
Yes.
there's gonna be a second inauguration and Trump's gonna be put in.
Yeah.
And unfortunately won't get credit for the last few months of Biden. But that's
Right.
I mean, she. I mean,
Okay.
I know Lynn Wood has lost his mind.
But for him to say that he's not going to talk to anybody in the orbit who thinks that there were election
irregularities or something. Right.
Once again, that brings us back to what he was doing with Bernstein on the panel, etc. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and 2 years ago, suggesting the election was stolen for Donald Trump with help by the Russians, propped up by the Russians. Russians had something on him, etc. His network was doing that actively.
Right.
And for him to not have anybody on his show who's in the orbit of the Trump's orbit, because it is the former president who believes this stuff at the core. Mm-hmm. And I believe that Trump absolutely believes it. I don't think this is flim-flam. I think he thinks that the election was stolen. Right. I don't think he's right. But I think that he thinks it. Mm-hmm. So that represents 75 million votes. 75 million people voted for this guy. And to not have anybody in this guy's orbit because it's lies is just not doing your job. Unless your job is not a journalist, which really it's not. He's a Democrat who works in a building that sometimes can be newsy especially on international affairs.
Right. There's also a range of beliefs about the election being stolen. Like I said, I don't believe it was stolen in the traditional sense. I don't think, there were programming irregularities in the voting machines or something. But I mean, I think that obviously, they shut down the Hunter Biden story on social media completely inappropriately that turned out to be true. They instituted this no checks mass mail-in voting. There were.
What does he want?
Hatchimals like the guys have.
Like what?
They're playing with Hatchimals and they're not giving him one apparently.
Oh.
I'll send them a message.
Okay.
Saddens me because there are Republican members of Congress with whom I respect, or formerly did, and there's too many important things to deal with right now in terms of what's going on in the Middle East, or in Africa, or in Myanmar, or China, or Russia, and also, if you're willing to lie about that, what else are you willing to lie about? And why should my viewers listen to you?
Well, because you were happy to propagate something before that was based on a falsehood as well. And also, it's the former president of the United States who believes something different than you. And last year at this time, you were saying that Trump saying that the coronavirus started in a lab was a lie. So maybe before you establish in concrete what is a lie, maybe you should talk to somebody who was voted for by half of the voting bloc in this country. Somebody who, you've got a lot of Americans who want to talk about this stuff, who want to have these discussions. Mm-hmm. But for Tapper, I'm not going to have liars on. Well, you have liars on all the time. You're just only taking one half of the liars.
Right. You're just taking on your liars.
Yes, that's exactly right. Let's see. All right. So Tapper also. Okay. Let me. I'll go to. Tapper also. Where should we go here? All right. So it was just kind of a good interview. She hit him. Kara Swisher hit him on the Cuomo stuff, which was a good hit, and he gave it to Cuomo. Man, I don't see how Cuomo lasts now.
Listen, let me just say, I know this is not your responsibility. I'm not responsible for everything New York Times reporters do, most of whom I don't even know, right? That kind of thing. But let me just put it out. The CNN anchor recused himself from covering sexual harassment allegations against his brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now it's been reported that Chris had been actively engaging with his brother's staff on strategy calls about how the governor should handle these allegations. He told him to hang tough, essentially, etc. CNN has come out to say that Chris Cuomo's participation in these calls was, quote, inappropriate. Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. I was shocked, I would have to say. I think it's beyond inappropriate. But the anchor offered an on-air apology to his colleagues. Is that enough for you? Is his apology enough? And does it affect you?
Well, such a complicated issue. And obviously, this is my company and my home and my workplace. And so that said, I cannot imagine a world in which anybody in journalism thinks that was appropriate. So, I mean, I agree with that. And he said Chris, in his apology that he delivered on air, said that he put us in a bad spot. And I would also agree with that. And then just as a last point, I would say that I work very hard to be fair and to be ethical and to not cross lines. And I certainly understand the love that Chris has for his brother, and I have a brother, and I get it. But that was not a fun day.
Yeah. Does it affect your work?
It doesn't affect my work, but their work is not my work, and my work is not their work. And yes, we all reflect on each other. But the only thing I have a role in, the only thing I have any control in, because I'm not management, right? I'm not the CNN bureau chief of DC. I'm not I don't have say in anything other than what airs on my show.
So that was a good hit against Chris Cuomo. I think that I don't see how he lasts there. He's not really getting any ratings anyway, and CNN is having a tough time right now. She also asks him about Brooke Baldwin, who was on. Remember, we played this on the air, saying it was a boys' club there. The guys got paid more, and it was and that's one of the reasons that she was happy to say goodbye. Tapper had no time for it.
One of the things I've noticed about your show is you do have a lot of women on your show. CNN, I talked to Don about this, we treat for being a bit of a boys' club, and former anchor Brooke Baldwin pointed out the influence and salary of men over there. Do you think there needs to be more changes at home?
I think what Brooke said was wrong. I love Brooke. I'm a fan of Brooke. But I think what she said was just factually incorrect. I know a number of women anchors, Dana Bash, Abby Phillip, Kate Baldwin, Erin Burnett, Brianna Keeler, Allison Camerata, Anna Cabrera. I mean, there's so many. And I think to suggest that there aren't, it kind of is
that they don't have influence. It's
not true. And also there are a number of, I mean, arguably Alison Gallus of Communications is one of the most powerful and influential people at CNN. Women run a lot at CNN.
He didn't hit the salary question.
Maybe he doesn't know. I mean, what people make in there.
Maybe he doesn't. Yeah. Who knows? But listen to this. So now, since he said that, since he's hit Baldwin, now he's got to go totally woke.
In terms of my show, I'll just say that, just because you touched on that.
This is why he's a mid-level intelligence person.
The only thing I'll say is it's very important to me as a white man to make sure that the show reflects the diversity of our nation. And I'm always telling my team, and they know this, and my team is incredibly diverse, but that I don't want any all-white men panels ever.
First of all, Jake, since it's important to you, the diversity of the nation, you could give Brooke Baldwin your slot.
Right.
You know what? How come it's never the person talking who's showing just how much he cares about diversity, whoever has to step away from his job to give it up? Jim Acosta, he could have just given the female reporter, the microphone, instead of saying, please, do you mind after I ask the question, do you mind asking a woman a question, please? He could have just seated right there and said, you can just ask her instead.
Right. I mean, and people do. I think, was it the Reddit CEO? There have been tech CEOs and stuff that have stepped down and said they want a woman to fill their role and stuff.
Well, sure, but not these media guys who are always happy to preach to us.
Period. Done. I don't want it, and it does happen rarely.
Imagine that. I don't want it. No, I don't want all white men there. No, doesn't matter. But there's only...
This is who was available.
Yeah, this is who was available. These are the best at it. No, I don't care. I want not the best people.
Go in and grab any random woman off the street. Bring her in so we don't have all white men.
Yes, because we're not just delivering news and information from the best people. I want them to be, it has to look a little like America. That's all that matters. It's not the words that they're saying, it's the appearance that they're projecting that really matters. So people just turn the volume down. Doesn't matter what they say. Just be satisfied. Look at us. Look at all these different colors. See? Doesn't matter what we're saying whatsoever. It only matters what they're saying if they're Trump people. He won't take liars.
Right.
Liars of any... That's where...
And Santorum's gone now, too, because he dared to suggest that the Native American political philosophy didn't have a huge role in our founding.
Right. You're right. And so, he won't take... Thomas Sowell is not allowed on.
No.
Because he's a liar. He loses his blackness, Thomas Sowell.
Well, so I guess then if you're going to have everybody just say the same thing and repeat the same talking points anyway, I guess it really doesn't matter who you have on. You really can just fill it in with any diverse set of people.
That is the truth about CNN.
If you don't care what people are going to... If you don't care about getting people's viewpoints, if you just want 5 people in the room to all paraphrase the same DNC talking points,
right,
then I guess it's fine. You can have people of whatever race and color and sexual orientation and gender identity to be on your panel, because you just all want people that are all going to say the same thing.
And that is total CNN. You're not getting a divergence on CNN from that. You will get, 4 liberals, and then Anna, what's her name, who the former Navarro, the former Republican who hates Republicans. Mm-hmm. And maybe they'll have on Mitt Romney or Bill Kristol to tell you how disgusting Trump is. But that's it. But that's not what he claims.
But, I support my women colleagues mainly because they're excellent. But yes, I also like supporting fixing the problems.
Does that include conservatives? Because, obviously Rick Santorum gets endless deservedly. If you're thinking about that, now Fox has no illusions. They don't do it at all. They just do whatever they please.
But fair and balanced, Kara.
Juan Williams has never been on Fox News. Tucker usually has a liberal or two in his show.
I think they don't go on anymore. They don't want to.
Well, no, not the ones that he sets up for. Not like the idiot who went nuts.
Kurt Heikenwald.
Yeah, not him. But he has a couple of guys who push back against him who have had communications positions in other administrations as well.
Right.
So throughout the day, I mean, I listen to the Fox News Sunday show will have liberals on it. Mm-hmm. Fox News does have liberals. All the hosts now, pretty much all the main hosts are conservatives. But on CNN, they're all liberals.
Right.
So what's the problem?
Do you think about that?
But there are diverging voices on CNN. The Five never doesn't have one liberal.
Right.
It always does.
That's 1 out of 5, though. It's 20%.
Well, okay,
yeah.
but there's a voice. But they go to them. You know, they want them. It's good programming.
Right.
To have a liberal.
And they have I mean, this is going to sound lame, but they have a variety of like different types of conservatives too. You know, like Greg Gutfeld is more of a libertarian.
Right.
And
Kennedy is a libertarian.
And Dana Perino is more of a like establishment Bush person.
And Neil Cavuto is an anti-Trump conservative.
Right.
And there is some diversity there. But also, if you're talking about the analysis shows on Fox News, those come from a conservative bent. Fox News was the brainchild of what's you guys' name?
Murdoch?
Huh?
Murdoch?
No, but Roger Ailes.
Okay.
Who's obviously a lifelong conservative strategist, and he came up with an alternate to all of the other news, which was conservative.
Literally all the other media everywhere is liberal.
State-run media like PBS is all liberal for some reason, which doesn't seem kosher to me. That's a different story.
Yes, ideological diversity too. Absolutely.
Yeah, where, Jake? Where is it? Because anybody who has a different ideology than you've deemed a liar.
Ideological diversity. 100%.
How do you do that given?
I think it's very important because most of this country, we need to reflect everybody. And this country is so divided in so many different ways, and we need to have people represented. Now, that does not include liars. I don't care about there's no truth diversity.
There's your out.
People who tell the truth and people who lie. I mean, I'm not willing to do that, but
no liars.
Yeah, conservatives, absolutely.
Absolutely, except not really. So that was Jake Tapper there. Let's see. So there's a couple things we can get to, Alice, although we are getting a bit thick here.
I know.
So we can table a couple things till tomorrow.
I think we have to hit Blue's Clues.
Okay, and so the NYC schools, I'll leave that for tomorrow. This is Sunday for us, you guys, and so for you listening, this is Sunday night for us on the East Coast, and for you listening, it might be Monday already, which is Memorial Day, and so a couple of these things we'll put away till tomorrow. The Nicholas Kristof, Bill Maher stuff we'll talk about tomorrow. Remind me, Alice? I'm going to write it down myself. You know what? I'm going to learn to do this myself. Kristof, Bill Maher. Kristof. Phil Ellis.
So I think we should do Blue's Clues. I wouldn't mind doing the New York schools. Are we going to do any Kamala at the, I don't even know where she was.
That's the Naval Academy. Our friend,
Academy.
I don't want to trigger a friend of ours named Greg, who may have had a son there at the event, who probably is still recovering from Kamala's whatever that was she did. Hold on one second. Let me just see. Okay, so we're gonna move New York schools, and we're gonna move Bill Maher till tomorrow.
Okay.
And the Ilhan Omar stuff is just her not being able to say the word filibuster.
I want to talk to you all about the filibuster. Filibuster. Talk to you about the filibuster.
Yes, I know that most of you were probably expecting incoming against the Jews in that particular cut, but no, this is in between anti-Semitic bromides. Ilhan Omar does a little comedy apparently, and that was it. She can't say filibuster. Okay, let's see what else I got here. Tapper, 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 tapper.
Yes, but
okay,
it is,
you
like
want
Tom was mentioning, though, it is actually Memorial Day, which
Well-
neither Biden or Harris could bring themselves to tweet about this weekend.
Here's a little Kamala Harris from the Naval Academy.
You are electrical engineers who will soon help convert solar and wind energy into power, convert solar and wind energy into combat power. And just ask.
Wow, this is electric. This is really the cadets are really enjoying this.
Any Marine today, would she rather carry 20 pounds of
You get that, Alice?
Would she rather?
Get
Yep,
it?
I got it.
Mhm.
Yep.
batteries or a rolled up solar panel? And I am positive she will tell you a solar panel, and so would he.
Oh man. Oof.
Yeah.
The
Maybe the Naval Academy can get a do-over from a real person this year. Congratulations to those graduates, by the way. But sorry, you know what? Think of it with a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the most vacuous vice
Someday
president we've
we'll
ever
look
had.
back on this and laugh.
Exactly.
I assure you. So.
Man, the roll of batteries joke. That one was just that is high comedy right there. All right, Alice. Tell me about the Blues Clues.
So this was a segment that ran on Blues Clues, which I believe used to be a children's show in which they would like look for missing office supplies using their handy dandy notebook, but it's apparently taken a turn in the intervening years. I don't know.
Hey, Blue, look at all these families. Hi, families. It's time for a pride parade. Families marching one by one, hurrah.
So there's a transvestite, is that what they're called?
A
Alice?
drag queen.
A drag queen, I'm sorry. Transvestite's out, right?
And she has a microphone with the revolutionary black fist on it.
Oh, very nice.
So,
Very nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Hurrah. Families marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. This family has two mommies. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Families marching two by two.
First of all, how is this okay to be appropriating the flowery presentation, the delivery of the singer? I mean, are you allowed to lampoon?
Well, I assume they probably are.
Are they allowed to?
No, I assume they're that person, so they're not lampooning it, so they're just doing it. You know what I mean? Like, if you did it, it would be lampooning it, but since they are that, it's not lampooning it.
Are they that?
Maybe, the singer. I don't know.
Hurrah, hurrah. Families marching two by two, hurrah.
I hope so.
Hurrah! This family has two daddies. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Come on, friends!
This is probably a song that's fairly prominent on this particular weekend
You
of
would
the year.
think it's, yeah. In another context.
Some things can be appropriated, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Families marching three by three, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching three by three, hurrah.
Why is there a dolphin? Is that a thing? I
All
don't
the
even want to know.
families, in the video, all the families are like different types of animals. There's like a dolphin family and a
Good.
whatever, some kind
I
of...
don't want to know if there's deeper meaning.
Hurrah! These Papas are non-binaries. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Families marching 4 by 4, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching 4 by 4, hurrah, hurrah. Trans members of this family all love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Come join the fun.
That's a kid's show, right?
Yeah, I would say it's geared at the like 3 to 5
Oh, good.
market.
Good, because I didn't want our 2-year-old watching it quite yet. Gonna wait another month or so, okay? And you'll be ready. I'm not trying to be a horse's tail, Alice.
A lot of you are very successful businessmen and women. If you were at a fancy restaurant in Washington 5-6 years ago at an important business meeting, and a gay or lesbian waiter came up, or transgender, spoke with a lisp or demonstrated they were gay or lesbian.
Or saying like that guy.
And someone at that luncheon table made fun of that person. No one would have said anything. Not a joke. I want you to literally think about this. Today, if that same thing happened, the other 4 or 5 people at the table say, "You horse's tail, get out of here."
That's right.
Really?
That's right. So don't be a horse's tail. Make your kids watch the Blues Clues.
So in fact, the cartoon is a rendering of Nina West, who does the vocals, who's a fan favorite on RuPaul's Drag Race. So in fact, it's not appropriation.
Oh, thank
Nina
goodness.
West is a drag queen. So,
Thank goodness.
Nina West is allowed to sing in that type of campy voice.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
RuPaul's pals can raise our kids for us now. All right. So a couple of programming notes before we go, Alice. And we're not going to end with Derek Clegg today. This is Derek Clegg. You know this. We're not ending with that today, Alice.
No,
we're going to end with a little nod to the fallen members of our armed forces who provide us the freedom and liberty to do such important broadcasts like this one, among other things. So, all right. So, first thing you should know is thank you, by the way, for all the 5-star ratings when you can, and the comments. Those are all helpful for some reason to the thing. So, also, we're doing more things.
Right.
Now, coming down the line, we've been working on it today. We'll be on locals. And so, first of all, let me start somewhere else here. Okay, Alice? I've already screwed this up. We will never charge for this podcast. We're so thrilled that you guys are listening and watching. That it means a lot to us.
Okay.
Now that said, we do want to monetize the podcast, so we'll be taking advertising on the Burn Barrel podcast.
Starting in the next couple of weeks, probably.
Probably the next couple of weeks. We're not going to load it up with big chunks of commercials and screw with you, and we're not going to trick you into thinking we're doing talking and suddenly be in the middle of a long live read about VPNs or things like that, unless they pay us enough. And then, but we'll always do this. This will always be for free, and it's always been a labor of love over anything else. And to have the numbers grow as they have has been a blessing. And if we can, the idea is to avoid me, to down the road possibly avoid Alice having to go to the warehouse, although she likes it there.
I do enjoy the warehouse.
Yeah, so she may not ever stop. And I would like to be able to devote myself 100% of the time to this, but the Burn Barrel doesn't pay at the moment. So if there are advertisers, we'll be taking some advertisers. And if you want to advertise, please let us know at burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. And the more, obviously, if I was doing the Burn Barrel podcast for a living, it would be a dream come true for me. And it would allow me to even spend more time doing it and look at branching out in different ways. And so we've started to expand regardless here.
I actually just want to make enough money to have a house cleaner if we're going to be spending as much time as we do on the podcast so that we don't get divorced over how messy our house is. Exactly.
Yes. And that's if they don't take it away for us not paying for it, which we're going to be needing to do. So this podcast will always be free. That's what I want to say. But we're going to be doing some extra stuff that is subscription based. So we are already doing the Substack, and there are free Substack offerings there. Those are columns that I write, but some of them, to get all of it, it's like $5 a month. It's $5 or whatever. And I appreciate those of you who have subscribed for free, and certainly those of you who are paying. I really do. So now we're going to be on Locals.
Right.
And Locals is a fun sharing community. It's a little bit like YouTube and Facebook, I guess, and kind of like Twitter, but Yeah, okay. And kind of like Twitter. And that's going to be more life, things about our life.
Wait, can we
backtrack
1 second,
yes.
too?
Maybe you should start talking, Alice. I am apparently
Here's the
incapable.
thing about ads is we recognize that ads are a good way to keep the show free, but I also know there are people that just don't like ads, which is also valid and fair and good. So we talked about having like other avenues for you to be able to get the show that you enjoy having without having ads in it. So there are 2 different routes that we're taking to do this, and you can do either one of them or both of them or neither of them or whatever. One, like Tom was saying, is locals, and locals will have all of the podcasts that we do free of ads on there. And that will be $5 a month or $50 a year. And then in addition to the free episodes of the podcast, the other thing that's on locals is it is, like Tom was saying, a community. It's essentially like a Twitter feed where people can post videos and posts and talk about stuff. You guys tell us so many amazing things about your lives and share so much stuff, through email and on Twitter and on Facebook that we can't get to all of it. But Locals provides a space where it's a members only community, so other random people can't come in and comment and stuff and be trolls or whatever. Where, we can talk about the chickens or our kids and what our kids are doing at school and all these other things. And, have a community of people to talk about the show, things that are happening in our lives, in the world, and talk to each other and to you. So that's what you can find on Locals in addition to all the shows that we do once we start having ads ad-free. That's one place. The other place where we're going to put the ad-free shows are on Patreon. And what Patreon offers is you can have an RSS feed like you do now of the show, so you can add it to your podcast player of the shows ad-free. Again, that will be the same price. It will be $5 a month to get the shows ad-free. But you can also, for an additional fee on Patreon, you'll have access to additional bonus shows. After the ends of our shows on Sundays, we're going to do an additional extended edition where we'll talk more and have extra show for you on there, as well as once a month doing live streams where we'll live stream Sunday's show. So you'll get to hear it early. You'll get to be a part of it, listen to it live, talk back to us in the comments section about stuff if we get something wrong, which we do from time to time, and all that stuff. So that will be available on Patreon, and that will also start at $5 a month. So both of those will be options to always get the show ad-free. Again, you have to do neither of those. If you want to just keep listening to the show like normal, it will just have some ads in
So
it.
you were designing something today. Who's that for?
So what I was designing will be, that's for supporters over a certain level on the Locals page.
Oh, on Locals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But we could also have that be a level thing on Patreon.
Yeah. And so, it might
we'll
be something as well that
and other
the
things,
top
yeah.
tier folks on Substack could get too.
Yes, we could do
So
that.
we'll figure it all. None of this
Yeah.
is done yet, but I just want to let you know what we're
working
trying
out
to do.
tiers and levels.
Exactly, we're doing all that stuff.
Merchandise and all the things.
Right.
But
and the idea is to increase content and make content better, and there will always be a free option.
right, we're
for
always going
people,
to do 5 shows a week.
which is the one I listen to, as a matter of fact, right now. Okay, so tonight is Sunday night for us. For you, it may be. Is there anything else? Should we plug the normal stuff, or is that enough? We gave people a lot of stuff to think about there, Alice.
Oh, I do have one point where a few people emailed us to tell us that we're wrong about Friends.
Yes, can you go to her? Is it her or him?
Her.
The big one. We got a lot of people.
We got a long email about Friends, but we had several people reach out to us and tell us that we're wrong about Friends. Well, in a few ways. There were quite a few commenters who told us that Friends is terrible and they never watched it and it's useless, which that's fair. We hear you. You're also valid and a good person.
We see you.
We see you. I hope you feel heard. But we did have a few people reach out to tell us that, for one thing, tweens are into Friends, and it's like a nostalgia thing, like how there was 70s nostalgia in the 90s, that now there's like 90s nostalgia, and Friends is a big part of that.
You know what that would be more like for my age is probably watching Brady Bunch, which is like horrifically heartbreaking.
Your dog
to think
is trying to
I'm that old.
the camera.
Dave, beat it. Dave, come here.
So,
Dave. Go, Dave.
So, yeah.
Are we out?
No, he just moved my camera a bit, but that's okay. So, but then we got one long email from Carrie, who emailed us to tell us.
Yes, the passion of the Friends people. And by the way, I was a Friends fan.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Friends at the time, too. I just
dressed like Chandler. I got the vests and everything, believe me. I tried
I have photos. I'll find some to put on our locals.
Nice.
Okay. Okay, Tom and Alice, my husband and I both listen to your show, and the four of us should be friends. It is insane how much we all agree. Literally everybody else in the world is insane. Anyway, I have to call you out on your Friends knowledge, not just about the show itself, but about its following. Your assessment that no one watches.
Hold on, Alice. No, did you see what happened there?
Mm-hmm.
Butters us up.
Mm-hmm. Compliment.
Exactly. Then come the torpedoes.
Mm-hmm. But about its following, your assessment that no one watches Friends anymore is not correct. Way off. It is still extremely popular to the tune of $425 million. That's how much Warner paid for its syndication rights in 2019. $425 million. Before that, Netflix had paid $100 million for it in 2015, and it was their second most streamed show. Lots of eyeballs still watching. And actually, I happened to
notice... Does Monkey get any of that, you think?
I don't know. I happened to notice it was on Nick at Night the other day. And I can admit that as a 47-ish something woman, I still watch it, or I listen to it as I go to sleep. It's a palate cleanser after a day of hellish 2021 style news and raising little humans. It's a time capsule to a careless and carefree life before everything got real. Well, at least the first several seasons prior to 2001. It's nice not to think about the possibility of hyperinflation and paying $100,000 for one chicken, or what a world without cops looks like for a half an hour at a time. Does that make me a bad person? No, Carrie, it does not.
Well said, Carrie. And that is a good point about more innocent time. I agree.
It
I agree
sure
with you right
is.
there.
It sure is. I've seen a few articles critiquing that Friends is too white.
Ooh, yeah.
And,
that's my problem with it. I won't watch anything that doesn't look like America.
I mean, are we supposed to believe that living in New York City, they didn't know more people of color?
I don't know. I don't see them invited to the apartment. Paul Rudd made his way on there, no problem. Tom Selleck, who was 74 at the time.
No people of color.
He was on. Brad Pitt. Yep. Anything these guys have in common, Alice?
People that Jake Tapper won't have on a panel together.
Correct. All right. So are we good to go?
We're good to go.
Okay.
Let's talk about honoring the troops.
Okay. Well, first of all, we should just say that if you're listening to this Monday, it is Memorial Day. Obviously, we know that you guys care. You're very patriotic, and we know that you care about honoring our fallen military. And once again, there's nothing that I can say about it that isn't already so cliched. But we owe everything, this bountiful existence the bountiful existence has just walked in here, to the sacrifices of the men and women who have laid their lives down in wartime to protect this nation, to preserve this nation, and to make sure that we have a fruitful nation that endeavors and strives to improve itself in the world again and again. And we love you, those of you who are currently serving, and we will always honor those who gave their lives for this country. This is Ronald Reagan. A Ronald Reagan Memorial Day speech production here. I will have a. It's a short one. It's just like a minute or two. I will have a link to it in the show notes. Everybody, take it easy. If it is Monday for you all, please make the most out of your day and try to squeeze as much joy out of it as you possibly can. And we will see you a little bit later.
Some time back, I received in the name of our country the bodies of 4 Marines who had died while on active duty. I said then that there is a special sadness that accompanies the death of a serviceman, for we're never quite good enough to them. Not really, we can't be, because what they gave us is beyond our powers to repay. And so when a serviceman dies, it's a tear in the fabric, a break in the whole, and all we can do is remember. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country, in defense of us, in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, grave and gray-haired. But most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up 2 lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. We owe them a debt we can never repay. All we can do is remember them and what they did and why they had to be brave for us.